Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to do part 10 of our practice questions. If you like the videos, please like and subscribe. It really helps me. If you need our study materials, please check out our website below, okay, at rbtexamreview.com, or check out one of the links you see there. I'll put those in the descriptions and the comments as well. So let's get going. Okay, question 1. How would you describe the trend of the data for days 5 through 8? So basic graphing question here, okay? They're asking about the trend of the data line, okay, or data path for a specific time. So they're asking for days 5 through 8. Where are our days? Right here, remember x-axis is time. And we're looking at 5 through 8. So we're looking at this. So how would you describe that trend? Is it increasing? Is it going up? No, it doesn't look like it's going up. It looks like it's going down to me. So increasing is out. Is it decreasing? Yes. Okay, that trend is clearly going down. Therefore, it is decreasing. Okay, stable, right, would be more like this, very flat. Okay, and then variable, we're talking about variability. This, we're asking about the trend. Therefore, the trend is decreasing. Question 2. What is the most basic method of identifying preferences? Okay, so we're talking about preference assessments here. As an RBT, you'll be doing a lot of preference assessments, either throughout your sessions or initial preference assessments. So this one, we're asking about the most basic method, okay? The method you would choose if your client is very young, if they have difficulty choosing between items, okay, if they don't have receptive instructions. This is the most basic method where you just need to figure out some way to identify what they like or what they don't like. Okay, so what are our options? We have single stimulus, which is one item, one stimulus. Okay, forced choice, 2 stim. And then multiple stimulus with replacement is 3 plus. Multiple stimulus without, 3 plus. So the most basic method here, okay, would be single stimulus. Why? Because in single stimulus, all you're doing is presenting an item and measuring the response. Present another item, measure the response, okay? You're not asking them to choose between 2 items. You're not laying out multiple items and asking them to choose and replacing them. All you're doing is presenting an item, measuring the response. So the most basic method of identifying preferences is single stimulus, okay? So that's our way to remember the different types, okay? Single stimulus is 1, forced choice is 2, multiple stimulus is 3 or more. Okay, your BCBA has requested your help with a functional behavior assessment next week, so an FBA. The assessment is scheduled to take 2 days. On the first day, your BCBA would like help interviewing caregivers and siblings. What type of assessment are the interviews? So they're asking specifically about the interviews. What type of assessment are those? Are they direct assessments, functional analysis, indirect assessments, or probing? So immediately you can eliminate 2, okay? You can eliminate functional analysis, right? Because the interview is not going to help us determine the function, okay? Functional analysis involves direct observation with manipulation, okay, of the client. Here we are interviewing caregivers and siblings, so we're not trying to find out the function, okay, by observation. We're asking people around the client, okay, what they think and what they know about the client, etc. Other one you can eliminate is probing, okay? Again, probing, right? We're not involved with the client, okay? We're not directly involved with the client. We're not observing the client. We're not doing anything with the client. So therefore, we're not probing, okay? We're asking caregivers and siblings, right? So that leaves us with direct assessment, indirect assessment. Now here's the key. Indirect assessment, okay, are interviews, surveys, checklists, okay? Anytime you're not directly observing what the client is doing, you're doing an indirect assessment. Therefore, direct assessment, right, is direct observation. You're directly observing what the client is doing, okay, and recording it. So if you're doing interviews, what type of assessments are you doing? Indirect assessments, okay? So again, indirect assessments are interviews, surveys, checklists, okay? Things where you're asking questions but not observing. Direct assessments, you are actually observing the client and taking data, okay? Both are useful in their own ways, but you should never do a full FBA without direct assessment, okay? All right, which of the following is an appropriate task analysis method? So remember, what is a task analysis? A task analysis is breaking down a complex skill, okay, into simple steps. So you take one large skill and break it down into, let's say, 10 steps, okay? So what is an appropriate way to do this? A, consult with experts or skilled persons performing the task. So you want to teach somebody to cook, okay? You go and ask an expert. You go and ask Gordon Ramsay, right? He could probably break down that task, okay, in a very appropriate way. So A looks good. B, perform the task yourself. You want to teach someone to wash their hands. Well, if you know how to wash your hands, you can perform the task, okay, and mark as you go and create steps based on how you're doing it, right? So you could perform the task yourself, monitor yourself, okay, and make a task chain that way and analyze the task that way. So B looks good. C, observe a competent individual perform the task. So you want to teach someone how to shoot a basketball, right? So you watch someone capable of shooting a basketball, okay, record the steps. Now you've analyzed the task. So C looks good too. So therefore, all of those look good. D is our answer. Okay, this is a trickier question, right? So, you know, if you aren't familiar with exactly how task analysis work, because we just talked about them at a really top level, okay, these are the three different ways you can actually perform a task analysis, which will come in handy, okay, if you're ever assisting in this with your BCBA, right? So you can always perform if you're wondering how to teach a skill, right? You can perform it yourself, okay? Write down the steps and teach it that way, okay? That's a good way to do it, right? If you don't have an expert available or another competent individual, okay? But point is, these are three different ways to do a task analysis, which of course leads to a task chain. Okay, you were driving on the interstate going over the speed limit. You notice a police car parked on the side of the road. As you approach the car, you slow down below the speed limit. What does the police car function as? Okay, so the question is asking, what is the police car signaling? What is its role? Okay, so we can eliminate two immediately. Okay, is the police car a behavior? No, right? It's not doing anything. We're not looking at the behavior of anything, right? So the police car is not a behavior. And is it a consequence? Okay. Well, let's look at our ABC. Okay, you notice a police car, and then you slow down. So it's coming before the behavior. Okay, right? Our behavior is slowing down. The police car comes before. It can't be a consequence. So that leaves us with SD for reinforcement or SD for punishment. So what is an SD? Well, it signals something. It signals something is available. Does a cop car signal reinforcement is available if you're going over the speed limit? Or does it signal punishment is available? Okay, well, think about it. If you're riding down, okay, and you see car and you speed, what happens? Pull over, which is punishment. Okay, so if this is our A, B, C, seeing the car is an SD. Your behavior is you're speeding. And your consequence is pull over. That's punishment. Okay. So in the past, seeing the cop car, okay, signals punishment. Therefore, in this scenario, what does the cop car signal? Punishment. Okay. It's a really good ABA question. If you understand this question, okay, like our question about the mosquito bite, then I think you're really starting to get, okay, the basic fundamentals of ABA. So this is a really good question. Okay, you have been working with the same family for over a year now. Okay, so you're very familiar with the family. Okay, good relationship. Recently, the client's mom and dad informed you they were getting a divorce. Should you report this to your supervisor? Okay. Does this impact the client? It's basically what these questions are asking. Okay, something happens in their life. Should you report it to the supervisor? Does it impact the client? It's a good A. No, this has nothing to do with the client's behavior. Well, maybe not right now, but can we definitively say that the parents getting divorced won't have an effect on behavior? No, we can't say that, right? So A is out. B, no, it is none of our business. Well, the ins and outs of it isn't our business. You shouldn't be asking personal questions, okay? But due to the nature of the relationship, right? These are their caregivers. Therefore, they are technically the client, okay? Remember, when we talk about the client, we're talking about the whole ecosystem. So the ins and outs are not our business, but this variable, okay, which could potentially impact the client is, right? So B is out. C, yes, you should always report variables that might affect the client. C is the answer. It's straight from the task list, okay? Word for word, always report variables that might affect the client, okay? Now, do you need to do a huge write-up, right? Do you need to make huge notes? No, just put something in your session notes, okay? Parents, inform me of this. Call or text or talk to your BCBA. Hey, by the way, this client's parents are getting divorced. Just a heads up, okay? Because as a BCBA, I can take that, right? And we can mark it down and then see how the data, okay, of behavior and skills are affected, right? So it's a possible variable that can affect behavior data. It can affect skill acquisition. So it is important. And you should always report variables that might affect the client. So our answer is C. Okay, easy question. What is the primary role of the RBT in the service delivery system? You as an RBT, what is your goal? What is your role day in and day out above all else? Is it implementation, treatment planning, assessment, or parent training? So B, C, and D, you might be assisting in those, okay? You're gonna be a valuable team member and part of that, but that is not your primary role, okay? That is my primary role as a BCBA. Your primary role as an RBT is implementation, okay? You implement our treatment plans. You implement what we assess, okay? That is your primary role, all right? You assist in creating all these treatment plans and these assessment and parent trainings, and then you implement, okay, with guidance from your supervisor. Tommy worked every day for 2 months teaching his client their address. Now, Tommy will occasionally ask his client to recite their address. What is Tommy testing for? Okay, so Tommy worked diligently every day, 2 months, safety skills, okay, independent living skills. If someone asks their client, what's your address? The client can say their address back. So now let's say occasionally, once a week, Tommy asks the client to recite the address. Well, what are they testing for? So we can eliminate 2 immediately. Okay, what are they? We can eliminate A, reinforcement, okay? We're not reinforcing anything. We're not talking about the ABCs here, okay? We're not talking about the consequences here. We can also eliminate extinction. We're not removing reinforcement from anything, okay? We're talking about testing for something, right? We're testing this skill. So are we testing for generalization or maintenance? Well, is the client having to generalize their address to someone other than Tommy or in a different situation? No, right? It's still Tommy asking for the address in the same situation, okay? Just a lot less. So we're not generalizing anything here. What are we doing? We're testing for maintenance. Has the skill maintained, even though we're not continuing training on it, okay? It's very important, especially with the kids we work with, that these skills maintain, even if we're not diligently working on it, okay, and training on it every day. So Tommy is probing for maintenance in this situation. You're teaching a client how to hand wash dishes. You start by hand over hand prompting them to scrub the dishes. You then move your hands to their elbows, then to barely touching their arms, no physical prompt at all. What are you implementing? Okay, this is a tricky one. This is a tricky prompt question, all right? Not something we talk about a lot. We talk a lot about least to most to least, but what is this type of prompting, okay? Is it gradual guidance, delayed prompting, least to most, or negative reinforcement? Well, D is out, right? Because we're not talking about reinforcement, okay? Okay, is it least to most? Well, no, because you started, okay, hand over hand, and then faded it, okay? So it can't be least to most. And least to most, we start with the least intrusive. That's out. Okay. Are we delayed in our prompting? No, we immediately prompt. Okay, so delayed is out. So therefore, it has to be graduated guidance or gradual guidance. Graduated guidance or gradual guidance. Okay. If you're not familiar with this term, right? It's more tricky, but the way to remember gradual guidance is it involves physical prompts and then fading physical prompts. Okay. So you start with the least physical prompt they need, and then gradually fade the physical prompt. When they need more physical prompts, you jump back in and then fade again. Okay. So if you see gradual guidance, if you're talking about gradual guidance, we're talking about physical prompts, okay, and then fading them as needed and implementing them as needed. Okay, what is considered the most conservative time sampling method? Okay, so we need to know what time sampling is. What is time sampling? It's discontinuous measurement. It's our momentary, our partial, our whole. Okay, therefore, what can we eliminate? We can eliminate IRT immediately. But what is the most conservative time sampling method? What are they asking here? Okay, they're asking what is going to record the least instances of behavior. Okay, so what is our most conservative time sampling method? If I implement this method, what's going to give me the least amount of responses? Okay, is it going to be momentary time sampling? Is it going to be partial or whole? One momentary, okay, it's hard to say, right? Because we're going at the very end of the interval, okay? And so that behavior could happen a lot at the end, or it could happen very little, okay? So you can't definitively say momentary time sampling is the most conservative, just like you can't definitively say momentary time sampling overestimates or underestimates, okay? It's unclear. Momentary is out. What about partial interval? Is partial interval a conservative method, okay? Or does it overestimate behavior? Okay, so if you think about partial interval, if we have 10-second intervals, okay, the behavior only has to occur for 1 second in each of those intervals. Okay, so if my behavior occurred 1 second here, 1 second here, 1 second here, for 30 seconds, the behavior only happened for 3 seconds. Okay, but our data says the behavior happened 100% of the time across all our intervals. Okay, it's a lot, right? It's not very conservative. What about whole interval? Well, if whole interval, we did the same thing and behavior happened 1, 1, 1, okay, that would be 0 responses, okay, versus 3. Why? Because in the whole interval, okay, it has to happen the entire time, okay? So you can see the huge difference in the two. So what's more conservative? Is it the 3 responses or is it the 0? Well, it's going to be the 0, right? Because if we look at our data, our whole interval recording says the behavior didn't happen. Okay, a very conservative way to view the behavior. Therefore, the answer is whole interval recording. All right, that wraps it up for today. Okay, like, subscribe. If you're enjoying it, remember all the study materials are going to be below or on the website. Okay, keep studying hard, learn your terms, learn your definitions. It's going to make the test way easier. As always, reach out to me if you have questions. Okay, keep studying hard. It'll pay off. I have another video coming Friday. Look out for that. And yeah, I'll see you then.